Okay, welcome back to installing your own PC. Our next step, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about your CPU and your heatsink and your fan. It's your entire cooling system. I want to let you know that when you're putting together, when you go inside the computer and you're working with the components of the computer, you need to keep yourself grounded, and there are certain ways you can use that. You can use a grounding bracelet, which I don't have, or there's a grounding mat, which I don't have, or you can just simply touch the case, and that's why I have a piece of the case here, because the case is made out of metal that will keep you grounded. So when you touch your components to your computer, the electrostatic discharge won't go through your cards and any of your motherboards, and it won't mess up any of your chips. Okay? With the CPU, this particular micro ATX board holds it's a 478 slot, and the CPU goes in the slot, and the slot is actually called the ZIF slot, and it's a 0 insertion force. That means that you can just slide it in there and drop it in, and you just barely touch it around the corners and it will just fall into place. This particular PCU is a Pentium 4. It's a pin socket. And now if your pins, you want to check out your PCU before you insert it. And if the pins are slightly bent, like one or two of them are bent, maybe you can use your screwdriver, just a regular flathead, and try to straighten them out. Make sure it's not a magnetic screwdriver. If not, if you have like more than 10 pins bent, then you need to just get a new PCU or exchange the one you have or something. Okay? When you're installing your PCU, with this particular slot, it's very easy to orient yourself and install it correctly, because the PCU actually has a notch at the corner that is identified with the slot, because the slot has the same identical notch. So you would pair up the notches on the corner. You'll see a little triangle on the corner of your CPU. And you'll pair that up, and that's how you know you're placing it in correctly. Then you'll need some type of thermal paste, and you must put the paste on. You want to make sure you don't get it on your hands, but this is a step that you can't skip, because the PCU, it's the brain of your computer, and it gets very hot. So you spread the paste on. You can use a credit card or something similar to that, and you spread it on, and you don't want to put too much on, because you don't want it to get on any of your other components on your motherboard. And you'll pull the socket down. The connections, if you look on here, you can see the connections. And you want to just pull the lever down and close your CPU into the ZIF socket. Put your thermal paste on top of the PCU. You want to make sure you clean all your fingerprints off of it first. And then you'll just place your heatsink right on top of your CPU. And the heatsink is designed to make all of the heat from the CPU rise up towards the fan. So it basically draws all heat away from the CPU, keeping it, because your goal is to keep it as cool as possible. You can use your credit card to wipe excess compound from around the sides. And prior to putting on your heatsink, you want to make sure you attach your fan to your heatsink, because once you put your heatsink on, compound is not dry immediately. And you can't go screwing on your fan to the heatsink, because it's going to move, which will create air pockets, which will make the heatsink not operate properly. So I have this already set, and once you get your fan and everything attached, this particular motherboard, the heatsink has levers to hold it down, and everything's already attached. I'm going to plug in my fan. It's the fan socket. The fan connector is 3 prongs. I'm going to plug the female end into the male end. And there are actually 2 fan sockets on your motherboard in case you decide you want to install a fan right here. If you're going to have a high intensity system, mainly for gaming and graphics, then you're going to need additional fans. But this computer is basically going to be built for someone who has never owned a computer before, so therefore the extra power is just not needed right now. Okay? Okay, so we're also going to go over your RAM. Your RAM is it's called random access memory, and with your RAM, this is how fast your computer can go. The more RAM you have, the faster it will go. This particular computer will have 1 gig. And the DIMM slots are right here. I don't know if you can see that, but they have levers on the side. You pull out the levers. This particular board has 3 levers. We're only going to use 2 because we have 2 slots. You want to check your manufacturer information to make sure that the particular board that you're using applies to the same rule. But with this particular board, I don't have to fill all the slots. I can fill whichever slots I'd like. And I start from the 0 slot and work my way out. The 0 slot is usually the one closest to the CPU, which is this one. So we're going to insert the RAM into this slot, the first slot, and if you look closely in your slots, there are hinges, and that is with the DIMM slots, the 168 pin. It has 2 hinges right there, and that's to ensure that you insert your memory correctly. You want to make certain that you never touch your chips on your memory. And if you place the memory right over the slot where it's supposed to go, you shouldn't have to pull the levers in to connect it. What you want to do is you're just going to press gently on both ends. You may have to rock it a little bit, but if you do, you want to make sure you don't rock back and forth or you'll loosen your connection. You want to make sure you rock side to side. So you'll rock it and you'll slide it in, and once it's in, the pins will automatically come up and you'll hear a snap. So we heard the snap, so that means the RAM is inserted correctly in slot 1, and I'm going to go ahead and insert slot 2 RAM, and I'm going to do it in the same manner that I did slot 1, and I'll listen for my connections. And there's another snap. So therefore, we've gotten our CPU installed on our motherboard, and we also have our memory installed. And our next step is going to be to insert the motherboard inside the case. Stay tuned for step 3.